This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Fireworks.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Seitzei. Bruchim Abam to the Kollel Agar de Perka here in Kew Garden Hills, New York. Elul, Tavshin, Ayin, Zayin. So, Parshas Seitzei. Rabbi Seitzei, today we're talking about your favorite subject, Malchus. Okay? So, don't take it personally. You know, we're not going to be administering Malchus, provided that everything goes as I expect. But the Rambam tells us in Choshen Mishpat in Siman Beis, Kasu Achroinim B'Teshuva Yisayim. The Achroinim write in their responsa, Demishin is Chayiv Malchus, someone who is liable, someone who incurs the penalty of Malchus. The only thing is, B'Zman Hazeh, we don't have a Bezdin, so we don't administer Malchus. Yitain Arba'im Zehuvim. You should give 40 gold pieces b'makai Malchus, in place of Malchus. So you sort of get off easy today. Instead of getting whipped, you could just give 40 gold coins. The question is that it's a little bit of a geneva over here. Why are we taking 40 gold coins from the person? I mean, presumably these 40 gold coins are in place of Arba'im Yakenu. Well, if the Torah Shabbat Peh was able to diminish Malchus to Arba'im Chasar Achas, then why, when it comes to the Kesef over here, do we not likewise diminish what he should give to Tzedakah to 39 gold coins also? Well, what's the pshat over here? If the Arba'im Zehuvim is in place of the Arba'im Yakenu, so the Char should only be 39. So let's examine the psukim in the Torah that talk about the administering of Malchus in Parshas Seitzei, Parak Chafei Pasuk Beis V'Haya Im Bin Hakois Harasha, and it will be if you hit the wicked man, V'Hipilai HaShofet, the Shofet casts him down, V'Hikol Lefanav, he hits him before him, Kedei Rishasai, in accordance with his wickedness, Bimispar, by number, Arba'im Yakenu, you hit him 40 times, Lo Yosef, don't add, Pen Yosef LaHakois Alayla, lest you hit him more than these, Makarabba, a big smack, the Nikla Achicha Leinach, and your brother will be diminished before your eyes. So one very interesting thing here that we have here is the Torah says Lo Yosef. No kidding, Lo Yosef. That applies by every single mitzvah in the Torah of Baal Tosef. You can't have 5 Parshas of tefillin, and you don't sit in the sukkah on an extra day, and you don't take hay minim, and you don't have 5 strings on the tzitzis. So we know Lo Yosef applies by every single mitzvah in the Torah. In fact, there is a lav in the Torah of Baal Tosef. So why specifically when it comes to Malchus does the Torah come along and say, well, Lo Yosef? We know Lo Yosef. Lo Yosef is a general rule that applies by all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Okay. Says the Mishnah in Makos on Daf Chaf Beis, Kama Malkin Oisai. How many lashes do we give him? Arba'im Chasar Achas. 40 minus 1. Shenemar B'Misbar Arba'im. The number 40. Minyan Shehu Samach LaArba'im. A number which is near 40. So even though the Torah says Arba'im Yakenu, but somehow the Mishnah tells us it's B'Misbar Arba'im, by the number 40. A minyan which is near 40. Rabbi Yehuda Omer? Rabbi Yehuda says Arba'im Shleimos, 40 complete. Hulaika. V'Heichan Hulaika. Where do you get it? As how you say it. Where do you get the 40th? In other words, there's a rule that you're Mashal Shalin Hamakos. 2/3 on the back, 1/3 on the front. The question is number 40. Where's the bullseye for number 40? Says Rabbi Yehuda ben Kseifa, between the shoulders. So obviously the $1 million question here is, if the Torah says Arba'im Yakenu, so how in the world do we get it to Arba'im Chasar Achas? Says the Gemara, my taima, what's the reason? Why do we only give 39? Says the Gemara, Iksiv Arba'im B'Mispar, if it would say 40 by number, Hava Amina Arba'im B'Minyana. I would think the number 40. Hashta D'chsiv B'Mispar, by count, and then Arba'im. And by the way, there's a soif pasuk in between the words B'Mispar and Arba'im. Minyan Shehu Soichem Es Arba'im. It means it's a number that tallies up, that rounds off 40. What number is tallied up to and rounds off 40? 39.
36 too.
What?
36 too.
And a soichem means finishes too. Soichem. 36 doesn't finish 2. Most people, if they say 36, they don't necessarily round it to 40. Look, if you're a really good salesman, you could do it. You know, somebody asks you how much, you tell them 36 and you charge them 40, you know. A used car salesman could get away with that, but anybody could get away with 39 to 40. Rabbi say at this stage in the Gemara, would you say 39 is Doraisa or is 39 Rabbanon? Exactly, Doraisa. Because the Gemara says that it's a drasha. If it would have said Arbaim b'mispar, I would have thought what the Torah means is 40. But now that it says by the number 40, that means a number which is rounded and tallied up to 40. The Gemara is saying that the meaning of the psukim of the Chumash is 39, meaning 39 is Doraisa. It's clear in the Gemara. There's no other way to read it. There's no alternative. The Gemara, what? Yeah, but based on, there's no alternative way in reading this Gemara, Pshan the Tanakama, that 39 is not Midrabanan, 39 is Midairaisa. Fine.
Why did you say 39? Why did Torah just say 39?
Good question. Well, maybe we'll get to that. Amar Rava. So Rava said, Kama tipshai shar inshi. Look how foolish people are. Why? Dekaimi mikame sefer Torah. They stand up before a Sefer Torah. When a Sefer Torah comes in, everything stops and everybody bends down. Everyone kisses Sefer Torah. And a rabbi walks in. What do people do? If that much, right? They shackle. They don't stand up for a great person. Why? The Sefer Torah The Sefer Torah says that you give Malchus of 40. But the Rabbanon come along, Batsu Chada, and they detract 1. So Rabbi say, listen to what Rabbi is saying. People are so foolish. They stand up for a Sefer Torah. They don't stand up for a great person. The Sefer Torah says 40, and the great person, the Gavar Rabbah, says 39. Right? The story goes that in the shul, the Netziv was dancing with the Sefer Torah, and there was a slip, and everybody said, "Quick, grab the Sefer Torah." And the Chavetz Chaim said, "No, grab the Netziv. Hold up the Netziv." Kama tipshai shar inshi. People are fools, says the Gemara. From this part of the Gemara, it's mashma that 39 is Rabbanon. Because the Gemara's point is, the Rabbanon are greater than the Sefer Torah, because the Sefer Torah says 40, and the Rabbanon say 39. What are you talking about? If it's a drasha gemura, if that's the meaning of b'mispar arbam, if b'mispar arbam means 39, then it's not the Rabbanon who are saying it's 39, the Torah itself is saying 39. So the Gemara is somewhat of a stira minei ubei. The Gemara begins by implying that it's an absolute, complete drasha, that we don't administer 40 malchus, we only administer 39. And then the Gemara says, by the way, it's the rabbis who are knock it down to 39. It's a rabbi, it's a drasha. By the way, another thing is,
why does that mean that 39 is Rabban?
Because
40, there is 39.
No, but if the Gemara is saying that the Rabbanon are knocking it down to 39, if the way to read the Psukim is that the Psukim are saying you get 39, then it's a Daraisa, it's not the Chachamim who are knocking it down to 39. That's what the Pasuk itself is telling you. Apparently, no, it's only through the reading of the Rabbanon or the Karch of the Rabbanon that we knock it down to 39. By the way, Rava is demonstrating the folly of mankind that the Torah says one thing and the Rabbanon are oikaret. There are a million things that the Chacham are oikaret. This is the only example Rava could think of this is what the Torah says and yet the Chachamim knock it down. Why are we dafka demonstrating how foolish people are by the fact, why don't we say, the Torah says you blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah that comes down on Shabbos, and the Chachamim say, no you don't. The Torah says you take a lulav and esrog on Shabbos, and the Rabbanon say, no, you don't. Why dafka? Why is this the example of how we demonstrate the greatness of the Chachamim from the fact that the Torah says 40 and the rabbis say 39? Okay.
This is an exact number. The Torah says 40. It's an exact thing. There's no machlokas about what 40 means.
Okay, so let's see. Right now, if I were to ask you, is 39 Dairaisa or Drabanan? The answer would be from the beginning of the Gemara, it's mashma, it's d'oraisa, and the statement of Rava, it's mashma, it's d'Rabbanan. Look in the Medrash. The Medrash says, Arbaim yakenu lo yosef. You smack him 40 times, do not add. What's the union of the 40 malchus? Says the Medrash, Keneged Arbaim klalois sheneskalulu nachash v'chava v'adam v'adama. The 40 malchus correspond to the 40 curses that the snake was cursed 10, Chava 10, Adam 10, and the earth 10. Upichasu chachamim achas mishum lo Yosef. The rabbis took away one because of lo Yosef. From what the Torah says.
Adam, Chava, Nachash.
I don't know. A quarter from each one. I don't know. Doesn't say. You know? So from the Medrash, it's mashma that it's a gezerah d'Rabbanan. What's a gezerah d'Rabbanan? Because since the Torah says lo Yosef, so what lo Yosef means don't give 41. So we know that when people count, they like to skip. Let's say when people are handing you money, say 1, 3, 5, right? That's how people count. So at the most you could get away with is one number. We're going to see that's the svara, that very often when people make a mistake and count, they're off by one. So if we do 40, they're going to end up giving 41, right? So this way we give 39, so they'll end up doing 40. That's the concept. But according to the Medrash seems to be saying that it's the Rabbanan who are knocking it down to 39, not like what the Gemara is mashma in the beginning, that it's a drasha. It doesn't say Arba'im b'mispar, it says b'mispar Arba'im. The Marzav on the Medrash, the Marzav says that Mishum lo Yosef, because of Oid Sham Pen Yosef lahakois, Hari Shekavona HaTorah lahizar bazeh, Uvehechach lasis yag l'davar, V'yesh koyach biyad chachamim levatem mitzvah saseh b'shev al tasa, Mishum geder shaloi saseh. Meaning, the Marzav is spelling out very clearly, that this is not a doiraisa to give 39. Midoraisa you give 40, but the Rabbanan have the koyach to be oiker davar min HaTorah in order to preserve the lav of lo Yosef. In other words, we're so fearful that you might add an extra lav that the Chachamim said, you know what, just give him 39, so you never come to give 41.
If 40 is for the kapara, you get the kapara for 39.
You want to know if you get the kapara? Yeah, the rabbis worked out a deal that you still get the kapara even though you only get 39 malchus.
How do you say that what's lo Yosef?
No, since the Torah says lo Yosef, you better not give an extra one. So the Chacham were so fearful that you might give an extra one that they said, you know what, don't give 40, give 39. Yeah, so again, now the question would be, if the Medrash is saying it's only D'Rabbanan, if the Marzav is only saying it's D'Rabbanan, so what does the Gemara mean in the beginning? Iksiv arba'im b'misfar hava min arba'im b'minyana. Hashtadachsa b'misfar arba'im minyan shusam zaram. But what do you mean? It's not a drasha, it's a D'Rabbanan. So let's look at the Rambam. The Rambam in Parak Yud Zayin of Hilchos Sanhedrin, Halacha Aleph, Keitzad Malkin Es Hamachuyev Malkus. Kefi koichai, according to the person's respective strength. Shenemar kedei rishasai b'mispar. V'zeh shenemar arba'im she'ein moisifin al arba'im afilu haya chazak ubari kishimshain. Even if you have a guy strong like an ox, even someone who's strong as Shimshain HaGibar, you don't give more than 40. Lefikach, says the Rambam, therefore, Amru chachomim sha'afilu chavra habari b'yoser. Even the healthiest guy, Makin oisay shloshim atesha shem Yosef lai achas nimsa shlohiko el arbam haruyasai. So even if you added one, he got the 40 that he should have gotten. That means the Rambam is saying clearly, Midairaisa, you're mechuyev 40. It's Rabbanan who are coming and say 39. This way, even if you make a mistake, you're good to go. So the Minchas Chinuch is medayik, rather correctly from the Rambam, that the Rambam seems to say that Midairaisa you should get 40, and the Rabbanan are the ones who hold that you only get 39. Why? T'chsiv b'misfar arba'im. He says in Minchas Chinuch, the Gemara says b'mispar, it says arba'im b'mispar, So if it would have said Arba'im, the Gemara says if it would have said Arba'im b'misbar, I would have thought it means 40. Now that it says b'misbar Arba'im, it means minyan shu soichem Arba'im. So the Minchas Chinuch says v'hu limud gamor. That would seem to be an absolute limud. That means, says Minchas Chinuch, if you take that Gemara literally, im kain min ha-Torah in loikin rak malchus lamates. That means midairaisa, you only get 39. If you take the drasha of the Gemara literally, then not midrabanan you get 39, midairaisa you get 39. However, says Minchas Chinuch, the lashon of the Rambam of lefikach amru chachamim makin oisay lamates, because it's a gather of the lav of Lo Yosef. So says the Minchas Chinuch v'ayin b'kesef Mishnah that according to the Rambam, the limud b'mispar arba'im is only an asmachta. Meaning there are two ways of learning the sugya. You could learn that the limud is a limud gamor, and then midairaisa you only get 39. Or you could learn, like the Rambam learns, that 39 is midrabanan, and the limud is just an asmachta ba'alma. In fact, the Sefer HaChinuch also understands that according to the Rambam, it's only midrabanan to get 39. And the question is, that's against the Gemara. But no, it's not against the Gemara because the Kesef Mishnah would say that the Rambam holds that the drasha of b'mispar arba'im is only in asmachta ba'alma. Okay, so let's understand. The Minchas Chinuch is gripping the Rambam, that the Rambam holds midarai, so you get 40, and the Rabbanon knock it down.
There's a difference.
So it comes, right, as opposed to saying that it's a drasha gemura. So let me tell you the question of the Minchas Chinuch. This is a tzarchiyan of the Minchas Chinuch based on the famous Taz. It is a very important Taz to know. Question. If Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbos, you do not blow shofar. Why not?
Worry about carrying.
Gezerah derabba. Shema yavirenu dalet amas v'shasuram. So what do we see from there? That a gezerah derabanan could push off a mitzvah deraisa. I have a question. Are you allowed to blow a harmonica on Shabbos? No. Why? Shema yisakein klei shiur. You might fix an instrument. Frek toisves. Frek the Ran. Frek the Taz. What do you mean you might fix an instrument? So then how could you ever blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah? We should ask you to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, Shema Yisakin Kli Shiur. Meaning if we don't let you blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah that comes out on Shabbos, because Gzeir D'Rabbanan you might carry, then how could you ever blow shofar at all? Shema Yisakin Kli Shiur.
So the
One is the Oraisa, one is the Rabbanon.
What do you mean? The same way the Rabbanon say don't blow shofar on Shabbos because you might carry.
That's against the Oraisa. Because one is an Isa the Oraisa, and Klei Shiur is
You're not carrying. You might gezerah, you might carry. Here, you shouldn't blow the shofar because you're gonna fix a kli shiur. If you fix a kli shiur, that's a deraisa also. It's tikkun mana.
It's still a derabbanan.
but it's a Dara.
No, it's not.
What?
Fixing a kli shiur.
Fixing a cliche, but it's Shema you'll fix.
Shema yavirenu dalet amos.
Yes, but there the rabbis would have nullified the mitzvah completely. And
So?
they don't.
So
Therefore they don't have the power to.
So the Taz says, very good, that the difference is that if the Torah, the Chachamim cannot come along and uproot what it says in the Chumash black and white. So the Chumash says, blow shofar. So the Chachamim can't go along and say, you know what? Don't blow shofar. We're afraid you might fix an instrument. Because whatever it says in the Torah, black and white, the Chachamim don't have the power to uproot. But the Torah doesn't say black and white, blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah that comes out on Shabbos. It just says blow shofar. Presumably that means Shabbos included. So Chachamim could come along and say, you know what? Blow on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but not on Shabbos. In other words, they could uproot what it says in the Torah, but not go against what's explicit and black and white. Says the Taz, yeah, it does.
So it should be also because Misakin Klishir.
The answer is the Chachamim don't have the right to do that because they would be going against what it says in the Chumash black and white. They don't have. They could be oiker davar min Torah, but not be Shema Yavirenu. It's Oiker Dam Torah, but it's not going against the black and white pasuk in the Chumash, because it doesn't say in the Chumash blow shofar on Shabbos. If it would say blow shofar on Shabbos, then the Chachamim could not be Oiker it. Says the Taz. Now we understand an answer to an amazing question. The question is, we don't blow shofar on Shabbos. We don't take Daled Minim on Shabbos. We don't lay in the Megillah on Shabbos. What about a kid who's born on Shabbos? When does he have the circumcision? On Shabbos. Why? Shema Yamirenu Daled Amos Parshas Rambam. B'yom Hashmini, that's the 8th day. Where does it say on Shabbos?
The 8th day is Shabbos.
No.
8th day overall.
No. It says blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, even on Shabbos. What's the difference? What?
Not a melucha.
Yeah, b'yom hashmini. It also says blow shofar be'echad b'chodesh hashvi. What's the difference? And the difference is like this. It says blow shofar be'echad b'chodesh hashvi, but it doesn't say even if be'echad b'chodesh hashvi is Shabbos. So we'll say only if it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But everybody knows already Bris Milah is on the 8th day from Parshas Lech Lecha. The pasuk Bayoyim Hashmini Yimo Besar Olasai, the Gemara Darshans, is telling you Afilu b'Shabbos. So if you have an explicit pasuk that, according to the Chacham Yisrael, is addressing Shabbos, the Chachamim can't come along and be oiker that. Says the Minchas Chinuch, frek the Minchas Chinuch, tazoi. But the Torah says explicitly, give 40 malchus. How could the Chachamim come along and say 39? They have no right to do that. According to the rule of the Taz, this is the principle of the Taz. The Taz's principle is the Chachamim could only be Oiker Darim and Torah if it's not going against a black and white pasuk. Frek the Minchas Chinuch, this is going against a black and white pasuk, because the Torah says 40, and the Chachamim are coming along and saying no, only 39. Again, that's if you're going to learn that it's a drasha gemura, then there's no kasha here. If you're going to learn that 39 is doiraisa, not like the Rambam, so then we understand. This is
Everybody gets 40.
What?
They don't get 40.
But this
again. But how can the Chachamim across the board legislate you only get 39? Again, if it's a real drasha, midairaisa, you only get 39, so it's not the Chachamim. But according to the Rambam, 40 is midairaisa, and the Rabban are the one who knock it down. The drasha the Gemara tzasmachta ba'alma. How could the Chachamim be oiker davar min haTorah when it's black and white? By the way, I'll tell you a very interesting thing, where this rule comes out again in this week's Parsha. This is a question that is addressed in the Sefer Shailas Utshuvos Pnei Mevin, also in the Sefer Shailas Utshuvos She'elas Moshe, also in the Sefer Shailas Utshuvos Ginzei Yosef. They all ask the following question. Also, the Kli Chemda asks this question. You ready? Oh, you want to know the question, huh? How could the Chachamim come along and say Pas Akum is Aser? There's a pasuk in this week's Parsha that Pas Akum is mutter. What's the pasuk? Lo yavo yamoni mayavi b'kal Hashem al devar asher lo kidmu eschem ba'alechem u'b'mayim. So the Torah is saying that Alman and Mav should have brought you bread. So we have a black and white pasuk that Goyim, they bring you bread, you eat it. So how could the Chachamim come along and say that the Pas Akum is Aser? It's against the Taz. The klal of the Taz is that when you have a black and white pasuk that something is mutter, Chachamim can't be oiker. So l'chayr you have a black and white pasuk that Pas Akum is mutter. So some say they should have offered it, but doesn't mean they would have known that. Who says we're going to eat it, b'chlal? Okay, I gave a shir on this kasha yesterday. Different teruts and answers. One answer is it doesn't say you would have eaten it; it just says they should have brought it to you. Okay, but that's right.
The first day.
Correct. We always do it.
Shabbos.
We always do it except on Shabbos. But the Torah is not saying afilu b'Shabbos. B'yom hashmini yimo b'sar olasai is explicitly referring to Shabbos. So what we're saying is that since the Gemara darshans that pasuk, afilu b'Shabbos, because since we already know that you always do meal on the 8th day, that's like it says explicitly. That's how the Taz learns it, right? You could.
Why do we need to say Yizil
Zechor and Teruah? Why do we need that whole Parasha? We don't really need it.
What do you mean Zechor and Teruah?
Yom Teruah weekday. You Zechor and Teruah Shabbat. Try to bring a raya that...
Lamaisa, the Parshas says the Gemara falls off of it. Lamaisa, Parshas says it's an asmachta ba'alma. Yeah, you're right. We don't need it. Parshas we don't need. Zechor and Teruah. Everyone says Zechor and Teruah is just a remez. It's a nice dvar Torah, but it's not pshat. Lamaisa Yushalmi seems to conclude with Zechor and Teruah. That's a separate discussion. Fine. So that's the kasha of Minchas Chinuch. According to the Rambam, that it's the Chachamim who knock it down to 39. How do the Chachamim have a right to knock it down to 39? By the way, yeah, but Lo Yosef is just saying don't give 41.
It doesn't say Lo Yikra, but it says Arboim. So,
Right, it says Arbam.
but it doesn't say Lo Yikra.
Okay.
Don't give less.
Okay. The Malbim, by the way, learns the Rambam differently than the Minchas Chinuch. It's very difficult to understand what the Malbim is saying, but basically the way the Malbim understands the Rambam is that the Chachamim, it's not that the Chachamim are knocking it down to 39. It's the Koyach of the incisive reading of the Chachamim who are teaching us that Midoraisa you only get 39. It's the Rabbanon who understand the correct way to read Psukim. They understand it's not Arbaim b'mispar, but it's b'mispar Arbaim, and through their ability to read correctly, they're able to reveal to us that what the Torah is really saying is 39. I'll let you try to understand how the Malbim brings this out, but again, that would be an answer to the Minchas Chinuch's question, because not the Chachamim being Oikar Davar Minat Torah, it's really their Kayach of Drush, which is saying that on a biblical level, you only get 39. Okay. What?
It's Torah Shabbat Peh.
It's Torah Shabbat Peh. Okay. Now, if you look in the Chizkuni, maybe the Chizkuni sort of would be able to offer us some insight in the Minchas Chinuch's question. The Chizkuni points out that why does the Torah say Lo Yosef? Everybody knows Lo Yosef al Adavar Lo Yisegru Mimenu. We don't need the Torah to say Lo Yosef. I wouldn't have given 41 even if the Torah didn't say Lo Yosef. So the answer is like this. Okay, very good. So the Chizkuni says like this. Let's say I tell you, don't do something that you already knew on your own not to do. The only explanation could be, I shouldn't do it now, I should do it a different time. So says Chizkuni, that's exactly what the Torah is saying. Don't add, but you are able to subtract. You are able to subtract. Avalagroya harashus biyadam. And therefore, that's why Chazal say that if somebody's very weak, you could give less and less. But is it possible to say that according to the Taz, the Chachamim are not able to be oiker something that it says explicitly without authorization? But here the Torah itself is authorizing the Chachamim to do less than the Torah says. Because since it's already, we know in Kla Torah Kula, Loi Toisef. So why does the Torah emphasize here, Loi Toisef? It's saying don't add, but if you want, we will allow you to subtract. Okay. Marv Rabbi, so let's try to understand on a philosophical level, where does this number come from? Why do we give somebody 40 malchus? Seems like an arbitrary number. What's the union of Arba and Malchus? So the Ramban says in Parshas Seitzei, Parak Chavhei Pasuk Gimel, says the Ramban, V'tam ha'arbaim, the reason for 40, Kefi midrashai, Lefi sha'avar al ha'torah shenitna ba'arbaim yom. The guy violated the Torah was given in 40 days, so therefore it is worthy that he should get 40 malchus. Number 2, Vigara misa la'atzmai. He is causing death to himself. Shenoitzar la'arbaim yom. He was created in 40 days. Therefore, Yilka arbaim. We give him 40 malchus. V'yetza yidei anashim. So the Ramban seems to be saying, there are 2 reasons for 40 malchus. Number 1, the Torah was given in 40 days. And number 2, man was created in 40 days. Right? Arbaim, we know, Arbaim Yom Koidem Yitziras Havlad. Yitziras Havlad, it takes place on day 40. On day 40, Rabbi Sai, the gender is determined. On day 40, the neshama is nizrak into the body. Therefore, the person is ruining the tachlis ha-Torah. The person is ruining his own purpose, and therefore we give him 40 malchus. Says the Maharal, I have a question for you. We know, first of all, that we don't give 40 malchus. You only give 39. But the Rambam says that you get 40 malchus, keneged the Torah that was given in 40 days, and keneged a person that takes 40 days to be created. So then, why don't we give 40 malchus? And number two, Rabbi said, and this is a question I think you asked before, I told you we'll get to it. And sometimes when I say we'll get to it, we actually do get to it. So, by the way, last week somebody asked me a question, I said we'll get to it. We're going to get to it today, okay? Eventually everything is got into. Some things are just got into longer than others. So, says the Maharal, if the Torah only wanted us to get 39 malchus, I have a brilliant idea. Say, whip the guy 39 times. How's that for an eitzah? Right? If the Torah only wanted to give us 39 malchus, so say it black and white. Says the Maharal, Avada, you should get 40 malchus. There's no question. But here's the idea. There's a concept. V'hurachom yichaper avayin v'la yashkes. Hashem forgives, He doesn't destroy. V'hir b'lahashav apoy. He very greatly returns and reverts away from His anger. V'la ya'ir kol chamasai. He does not arouse all of His anger. Where is there a demonstration of Lo Ya'ir Kol Chamasai? The Torah says hit the guy 40 times and we only do 39. Says the Maharal, that's why. How many words are in the pasuk? V'hu, Rachum, Yechaper, Avoin, V'loi, Yashchis, V'hirba, Lahashiv, Apoy, V'loi, Ya'ir Kol Chamasai. Everyone's saying it's not 39. It's 13. So there are 3 sets of 13 malchus. One on the front, each one we say, V'hu, Rachum, Yichaper, Avoin, V'lo Yashchis. And then we do another set on the back, and again, V'hu, Rachum, Yichaper, V'lo Yashchis. And then again, Nachamal. The point is, that even though the Ribbon Shalom really is angry at the person and upset at the person, but V'lo Ya'ir Kol Chamasai. So Avada Arba'im Yaken. Really, he deserves 40. But realize that the Ribbon Shalom is having Rachmanis on him. But says, so let's read that inside. It says Maharal, on the third line, number 14, V'yesh Mefarshim, Devadai din hu sheyilka arba'im, V'mnei shachata, V'chayiv oynesh l'shamayim, Yiyah nilka arba'im, Kineged arba'im yom shel yitzir savlad, Rak v'mnei shu yizbrach, Ino meir kol chamos, so Hashem does not arouse all of His anger, L'kach la yilka arba'im shleimos, therefore you don't get 40, V'hayu koyrim gamken, V'hurachum, Imam Malkus, they would read V'hurachum with the Malkus, Sheyesh ba Yid Gimel Tevois, Neged HaMalkus, Shu Yid Gimel Lefanov, U'shnei Pamim Yid Gimel La'achrav, And then the Maharal says something which is Dvarim Ha'im Dim Berumah Shalaylam. It's Ayim Benayra. Says the Maharal, it takes 40 days to create the human being. What comes on day 40? The neshama. The neshama comes on day 40. Says Maharal, V'yoim ha'achroin hu yoim ha'arba'im mekabel havlad ha'neshama. That means it takes 39 days to create the body and 40 days to create the neshama. When a person sins, who deserves to be punished? The guf or the neshama? So on the one hand, you could say both, because, the Gemara talks about each one could pater itself. The guf could say, what do you want from my life? I didn't do anything. Look at me. Take out my soul and see what I could do. Then God says to the neshama, so no, it's your fault. Neshama says, me? I'm a tzaddik amr. Take me by myself. Without that guy, I'm a perfect tzaddik. So each guy could. It's zelo yachal v'zeino yachal l'char pater. So what does Ribbon Shalom do? He puts the two together and he says, I don't know who's responsible. Well, you're both responsible. The point is like this: Be'etzem, the one who's responsible to be punished is the guf, the taiva, the cheshek, the yetzahara. The desire for evil is the force of the body, the power of the body. The only thing is, there's a klal called hamachubar el hatame tame. it's guilty by association. The body, the neshama really inherently is pure and perfect, but it's guilty by associating with the body. So let's say you're giving a shiur, and most of the class is misbehaving. So Rabbi said, that's it! No recess for this class today. And there's some goody sitting in the front row, right in front of the Rabbi. The guy never did anything wrong in his life. Nebuch, he has to suffer. He's going to go to recess. He's part of the class. But what happens if everybody's so bad that the whole class is expelled except for this kid sitting in front? So the kid's going to have recess. Once all the mischievous people are gone, the kid is good. Says the Maharal, really, you deserve 40 malchus. 39 for the guf, and 1 from the neshama. The neshama is guilty by association. So you get 1 malchus, and you mechaper 1 part of the guf, and you get another malchus, and you get another malchus. Once you've gotten 39 malchus, and the guf has gotten its deserved punishment, and now we isolate the neshama by itself, you can't punish the neshama. The neshama separate from the guf is kadosh v'tar, is not deserving of any punishment. So when we start off the bat and we're dealing with the entity in and of itself, we say this entity was created in 40 days. It needs to be punished with 40 malchus. But once 39 malchus are administered, there's no reason, says the Maharal, to give a 40th makkah, because the neshama standing on its own, says the Maharal so beautifully, V'harei b'lametes makkos husar achet min haguf umemela nimsa haneshama tahira she'im b'pchisus ba'atzma. The Maharal says in the last 3 lines, Rak hasher hi mitzurefes l'guf, when it's attached to the body, hachote b'chasher haguf naki min achet ein kan pchisus v'chet b'neshama ve'ein sarach l'halkoisai oid. Beautiful pshat. Let me tell you Chasam Sofer. A beautiful Chasam Sofer. Says Chasam Sofer, there are 2 reasons to give 40 malchus. 1, keneged the fact that the person violated the Torah that was given in 40 days. Keneged the fact the person is ruining the neshama, ruining his yitzira that took 40 days. What's the nafkamina, says Chasam Sofer, between these 2 reasons? Whether malchus is keneged the 40 days the Torah was given, or keneged the 40 days that it took Hashem to create man. Chasam Sofer says a very big nafkamina. If it's keneged the 40 days that the Torah was given, then l'chayra you would have to give 40 malchus shleimais, because we know the Torah was given in 40 complete days. V'haraya, Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to come down in the 6th hour, not in the beginning of the day. And Moshe Rabbeinu was late. They thought he was late, but he wasn't late. Moshe needed to be there 40 days and 40 nights, miyom liyom, meaning the first day didn't count because it was not yom yimai. So if it's keneged the 40 days of the giving of the Torah, it has to be 40 complete days, 40 complete malchus. But if it's keneged arba'im yom shel yitziras havlad, it doesn't mamish take 40 days for Yitziras Havlad, because in 99% of the cases, the conception is not the second after Shkia or the second after Tzeis. It's sometime after that. That means the first day is not a Yom Shalem. So if it's Keneged Arba'im Yom Shel Yitziras Havlad, you don't really need Arba'im. 39 is also good. Says Chasam Sofer, listen carefully. So why do we only give 39 malchus? That would seem to indicate that the malchus is more keneged the Yitziras Havlad than keneged the violating of the Torah that was given in 40 days. Says Chasam Sofer, that's right. If I were to ask you, when a person does an Aveira, which is a bigger sin? Being poigeya in the covet of the Torah, violating the honor of the Torah, or sullying the neshama? What has more kedusha? The Torah or the neshama? You know, if you would have asked somebody, stop somebody on the street corner, hey pal, question for you. What has more kedusha? A sefer Torah or that Jew walking down the street with an earring, his soul? What has more kedusha? Come on, what kind of ridiculous? No, says Chasam Sofer. Avada the neshama has more kedusha than the Torah. Why? The pshat is very pashat. Because the Torah is just the Devar Hashem. But the neshama is a chelek Eloika Mimal. Is a chelek of Hashem Himself. The Torah is just Hashem's word and Hashem's will. The neshama is kiviyachol chelek Eloika Mimal. Memela says the Chassam Sofer, the fact that we give 39 malchus, you know why? Because it's worse to ruin your soul than it is to violate the Torah. And therefore, Kimle b'derabba minei. Since there are two punishments that he deserves, the sin of ruining himself and the sin of ruining the Torah, and it's a much greater infraction and violation to ruin yourself than to ruin the Torah, Kimle b'derabba minei, we only give you 39 malchus and not 40. Oh, so Rabbi says, what do we see from here? We see from here a Tzadik is greater than a Torah. Kama tipshoi sharinshi, says Rava. You know what you see from here? You see from the fact that you only give 39 malchus and not 40. Why? Isn't it worse to violate the Torah than to violate a person's own potential? No, you see that it's worse to ruin the soul of what a person could have been than to go against the Torah. Oh, so look how foolish people are. They stand up for a Sefer Torah, and they don't stand up for a Gavar Rabbah. A Gavar Rabbah is much greater than the Torah. How do I know? From the fact that you go only 39 malchus and not 40 malchus. What? In other words, the reason why... So the way he explains it is, it's worse not to actualize what could have been. Here's another pshat. And this pshat is said by the Chassam Sofer in a number of places, in Parshas Seitzei. And the Chassam Sofer says an incredible pshat. This is also offered by the Divrei Yecheskel, the Shinover. He says an incredible thing. He says, yes, the Torah says Arbam Yakenu. However, there are a lot of ways to hit somebody. There are a lot of different types of malchus out there. The Gemara says in Brachas on Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, look at number 16. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yosi, Toiva mardus achas b'liboy shel adam yoiser mikama malkios. More powerful and greater is one self-rebuke in the heart of a person greater than many, many malchus. Meaning, one krechts, one self-recognition, one understanding of how low I've fallen, one degree of self-awareness is greater than all the Yisurim in the world. In other words, yeah, a person does an Avera, they deserve Chas Hashem Yisurim. But more valuable, what's the purpose of Yisurim? That the person has the self-awareness that they're doing something wrong. That, the sharp pain of the soul, that recognition that look how far I've fallen, is much more powerful than all the malchus in the world. Says the Chassam Sofer, really you should get 40 malchus. But probably, says the Chassam Sofer, once we've given 39 malchus, by that time, there's no question the guy has already felt in his heart, oy vey, look what I've done. And he's given himself the toiva mardus achas b'liboy shel adam yoser mikol malchus sheva olam. So says the Chassam Sofer, that's the pshat, why we can only give 39. Because if we give 40, then what's going to happen if the guy gave himself the self-rebuke, which is bigger than all the malchus in the world? It's going to be in addition to the 40, it's going to be over lo Yosef. Therefore the Chachamim say, only give 39, because once you give 39, we could assume that he had the hirhur in his heart of the self-rebuke.
Why is the number 39? Why isn't it 32?
What?
Shot in the number 39.
No, because the shot is like this. This is how the Divrei Cheskel explains it. He says, how do Chazal know that the 39 malchus we give him and the 40th one he gives himself? Maybe the Torah just means give him 40 and then you're Yotzei. The answer is like this. Why does the Torah have to say Lo Yosef? Everybody already knows you're not allowed to add on to anything. The fact that the Torah specifically said Lo Yosef in the context of Malchus means the Torah specifically here is very, very afraid that you might add. Why? What's going on by Malchus that we're in more danger of adding than any other Inyan? It must be that the process of giving someone Malchus is very likely to lead to the self-awareness and the recognition and the krechts in the hearts that a person says, oy vey, look what I did. So that's Megala to Chazal. The fact that the Torah says Lo Yosef is Megala to Chazal, that we're very concerned that a person might administer him to himself. Toiva, Mardas Achas, Beliboy Shaladam, Yosar Mikal, Malki Yos, She, Ba'olam. And therefore, Chazal know we could only give 39. Let me share with you one other thought, and then we'll wrap it all up. Last week we spoke about V'loy haya miskaven lahazois loy lamala v'loy lamata ella kematzlef. So somebody asked, so what does matzlef mean? And what did I say? We're going to get to it. And then they came over to me after Shiur. What does it mean? And I said, I have no idea. But luckily, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it right now. The reason why I had no idea is because I looked at Rashi in Masechta Yuma and Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis, and guess what Rashi said? Kematzlef. Says Rashi, loy noidali. So when they asked me, what does it mean? I was telling them what Rashi says. Loy noidali. Says B'nai Yissaschar, you want to know what it means, kematzlef? Look at the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel on the pasuk Arbaim liyakenu lo Yosef. Says Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, Arbaim yatzlef v'chasar chad yalkine. Give him 40 yatzlef and -1 malchus. What's going on over here? Says B'nai Yissaschar, it means like this. Says the B'nai Yissaschar. Why? This is number 23. Why does the Torah say Arbaim la'kenu lo Yosef? If you're only giving him 39, so say another bottom line. At the end of the day, if you're only going to give the 39 malchus, why doesn't the Torah say give him 39? Why does it say Arbaim ya'kenu lo Yosef? Says the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel. No, there's one mistake you're making. Even though you don't hit him 40 times, you do something 40 times. You're yatzlef 40 times. So what does yatzlef mean? It says B'nai Yissaschar, yatzlef is like the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, Kuf Nun Amud Beis. There was once a guy who went and he saw his fence on Shabbos was breached. He didn't do anything about it. And Hashem made a miracle that a tzelef plant grew there. It's a very leafy plant that grows downward. Yatzlef means like this. You lift up. You go like that 40 times. You motion 40 times. But you don't actually do it. You only hit him 39 times. That's Pshat Targum Yonasan. Meaning, but the Torah says, Arbaim ya'kenu. You have to read the words. You have to know how to touch the words. Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says, it means, Arbaim yatzlef. Your motion, your maharal, you make it as if, so that's what it means. They didn't actually sprinkle 7 times up and 7 times down. You motion 7 times. Motion 7 times up, 7 times down and 1 time up. That's, where do we get it from? Arbaim yatzlif v'chasar chad yalkine. Says B'nai Yissaschar, this is the Makar of the Zohar HaKadosh, that the Ribbanu Shel Olam wants to sometimes be ma'anesh, but he refrains from doing that. And this mitzvah of Arbaim Yatzlef Chasar Achas is, so to speak, the mahu afata. It's the way that we emulate the Darkei Hashem, who sometimes in Shamayim is ma'oirer, certain dinim on Kal Yisrael, but he refrains. He's v'lo yoyer kol chamas. So let's wrap it together. 40 malchus, but we only give 39. Why? Either the 40th malka is the most powerful malka, is the goal of all the malkas, the self-incrimination, the self-awareness, the self-realization that toiva marda achas beliba shaladam yosem mikol malka sheba'olam. Or the pshat is, once you do 39, the neshama is free and the neshama is pure, it doesn't need it anymore. And now, what does this have to do with the Zman of the year that we're in? Everything. Because we have 40 days of Teshuva. And in the 40 days of Teshuva, we, so to speak, we're working on ourselves, we're working on ourselves, we're working on ourselves. But then when we get to that 40th day, what's the goal of all the tshuva, of everything we do, of all the shofar and all the tefillos and all the hanhagos and all of the different activities that we do? The goal of the tshuva is for the 40th level. The goal of the tshuva is the self-awareness, for the Yom HaKippurim, for a person to understand in their heart, Chatasi avisi pashati, that toiva marda achas beliboy shaladam yoiser mikol malki yoshev ha'olam. The purpose of the whole 39. You know what? Sometimes it's a long process. It takes many days. Just like it takes 39 malchus to get to the madrega of toiva marda achas beliboy shaladam. It also sometimes, it could take, and it does take 39 days to get to the awareness of toiva marda achas beliboy shaladam. But maybe we could just add one dimension. The same way the Maharal says that once you whip somebody 39 times, the 40th time becomes unnecessary. So we have 39 days. You have 39 days where we do tshuva and we try to subdue the taiva and the cheshek of the guf. But then we come Yom HaKippurim, and on Yom HaKippurim is the day of the neshama. Ein by kina, the ein by Sacharos. It's a day that we're doing Malachi Asharis. It's a day that the neshama is, so to speak, freed of the shackles of the guf. It's freed of the Yetzer Hara. Hasatan is Gematria 364. We have no Yetzer Hara on Yom HaKippurim. The same way, once the guf is punished, then the neshama is able to say, look at me, I'm pure, I don't deserve any onshim. So the first 39 days of the Yemei HaTshuva are focused on the guf. And then comes the last day of the Yom HaGuf, Erev Yom Kippur. What do? We just eat, we eat, and we're finished with the guf. Once we're finished with the guf, Rebbeinu Shalom, we say, but look at our neshama. We don't deserve any onshim. The neshama is kadosh, neshama is tahar. That makkah that you thought we deserved, look at us now. We're free, we're kadosh, we're tahar. And the Rebbeinu Shalom says, okay, it was Arba Yatzlif. I motioned the 40th time, but v'chasar achas yalkine, you're right. When the neshama is free from the guf, you don't deserve any onshim, and hopefully we reach that madrega. We shall have a ksivach sima toiva. One second, Alvin, keep it on. We're still on? Oh, we're still on. So the pshat is like this. One second. So the pshat is like this. The 39 malchus, the only reason not to give the 40th halacha is because we're afraid you might give an extra one and you might kill the guy. Money though, money the guy can handle. That Xer doesn't apply to Monday. So the pshat is that really you deserve 40. It's a Xer d'Rabbanan not to give the 40th, but that doesn't apply by the kesef. Yeah. Shkaya.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.